Welcome to Brad Dacus Live. I'm Brad Dacus, president and founder of the Pacific Justice Institute. We saw a very interesting debate, I think a much better debate than we had before. And to talk about the issues and things that were raised in that debate, we have with us here on the show Peter Mordh, who is a pastor and also serves as pastor liaison for the Pacific Justice Institute, connecting and working with pastors, helping us to meet their needs, and really to have a big impact in enabling and empowering them in so many different ways as well. So welcome to the show, Peter.
Thank you.
You've been on before, so I'm glad to have you this time as well.
Absolutely.
That debate was an interesting debate. First, your overall take on it. Was it better than the last one? I think it was.
Yeah, I think them having the power over the mics maybe put a little bit of a back and forth flow to it rather than talking over each other. But yeah, I thought it was a better debate than last time.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think it was also it was more substantive, more revealing on the candidates, their positions, and hopefully people really listen carefully. And in so doing, I think they'll see a difference. There was some like political posturing that took place. We're going to talk about that. Let's go into it right now. The first issue in the debate, and we're going to talk about some other things that were brought in that were very important, like the Joe Hunter Biden money laundering that is now forcing the media, I think, to finally to deal with it. Even those in the established media that wanted to hush it. It's now credible. It's supported by third parties and backup evidence. We're going to talk about that a little later, and the court packing. But first, let's talk about one of the big issues, which was the COVID lockdowns. They had very different perspectives moving forward. Yeah, that I thought was pretty surprising. How upfront both of them were. But it's a real clear choice. What did Biden say? What's his perspective on the shutdowns?
Yeah. He tried to act like he wasn't going to shut everything down again. I know he's talked a lot about shutting things down, but he tried to say, well, I'm not going to necessarily shut everything down. But he's like, listen, if cases keep going up, then we're going to have to, start the shutdowns again.
What I would say is I'm going to shut down the virus, not the country.
Here's the issue. Cases are going to continue to go up because people are going to continue to get it. We're learning the death rate's going down. Hospitalizations are going down. And so that case rate was kind of his sleight of hand to say, well, if the case rates are up, then I'll lock everything down. And Trump just kind of came back and said, listen, we can't keep our country locked up anymore. We've learned from this. We're doing everything we can to help with it, but we can't afford another lockdown, not just financially, but emotionally and spiritually.
I know one study that came out that was done. It was they looked at the deaths in terms of those who died because of COVID and were lives saved apparently by the shutdown versus the lives that were lost because of the shutdown in terms of depression and suicide, drug overdose, cancer treatment patients who were not diagnosed early because all regular exams were canceled by and delayed months. Yeah, surgeries that were delayed, heart attack, all these kinds of deaths that have happened. Yeah, they found that for every one life that was saved because of the shutdowns, more than 10 lives have been lost. Wow. And that's just separate from the economics. Yeah. I'm concerned about having someone in the White House that is totally out of touch with what's happened to the American people. Yeah. And I liked how Trump just came out and said, we cannot afford to let this continue.
Open the schools. The transmittal rate to the teachers is very small, but I want to open the schools. We have to open our country. We're not going to have a country. You can't do this. We can't keep this country closed. This is a massive country with a massive economy. People are losing their jobs. They're committing suicide. There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before. There's abuse, tremendous abuse. We have to open our country. I've said it often. The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself.
There's two fundamentally different ideological differences between the two candidates, and one is big government, one is small government. And I think we really saw that last night in a big way. If you're for big government, you saw Biden, saying basically, we need to do more, we need to give more, we need to have a greater role. Well, really, that's what every socialistic state wants. They want more control. They want, to have all of the pie so that they can kind of put all the different pieces and have the power. Trump was basically saying, I don't want that socialistic philosophy of control and power. I actually want to give the control and power back to the people in order for them. And he even said this twice. He said, every state's different. Every area is different. New York is different than Mississippi. And I loved that because the country needs to understand that the leader needs to make those decisions based on what's best for those states, not a blanket lockdown or blanket control. And so I think that was the biggest, contrast for me, is seeing the difference between big government and small government.
Also, the agendas behind it, I think, are really important. Kamala Harris, Joseph Biden, their supporters on the far left and the party, it's almost like they want to destroy America. They want to break everything down. I think it's one reason why the Democrat governors, it's the blue states that had the massive shutdowns, the oppression of churches, very different than the red state philosophy, which is like, let's work with it, let's be responsible. But it's like the Democrats want to bring down the economy. So then, partly for political reasons, because they want the economy to be as weak as possible on election day. That's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But also, I think they want to destroy America and then rebuild it, a new society. That's what they've talked about.
Right.
A new America, a new system, which is premised upon what they're saying, based on socialism, Marxism, very concerning.
Yes.
And yet Trump is about putting America first, not rebuilding America, but making America even better,
Right.
and helping the free market. What about the comparison in terms of the cost of COVID restrictions? I mean, what are we looking at there? What kind of real cost are we facing moving forward?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone has done some numbers, but there are, it's interesting how they like to pick and choose which experts to look at, So they're really wanting to look at those kind of left-leaning health experts who sit in an office and look at algorithms and everything. But when it comes to like even a financial expert or a family expert, I mean, there are some liberal family experts are saying, hey, this is devastating for our communities. CPS having a massive spike in calls, DCFS having a massive amount of people of kids being put into the system because of this pandemic. So there are long-lasting things, and I've said from the very beginning, I think that the ripple of this is going to be 10 or 15 years. So the cost, relationally, emotionally, spiritually, it is vast. Not to mention, the cost in our economy.
I know the applications for divorce is up 34% year to year.
Wow.
Huge increase in just 1 year.
Sad.
The suicide attempts is nearly double what it was this time last year. So it's having a huge cost, and the fact that we could have a total shutdown again with this big government mindset and forcing all states to do whatever the person in the White House dictates. This regard could be very, very destructive. Our economy would be much worse off, I believe, if we had that mindset from the beginning. From states that did not need to have the total shutdown, and that Trump allowed to do that. One thing I like about Trump on the economics is the fact that it's not a gamble.
Right.
We saw what he did.
Yeah.
The most incredible economic growth and comeback in world history, lowest unemployment rate in world history, not just for certain group, but for minorities, for African Americans, Latinos, etc., for women. It was absolutely incredible. It was very clear what he did, how he did it, why it happened. But for the pandemic, we would be in an even stronger position. To what extent do you think the American people are going to step back and ask the question, moving forward, who's going to most likely put America into a recession, or who's most likely going to allow our country to build back stronger and faster moving forward? Do you think that's on their minds at all? Because in the Biden administration, the Obama-Biden administration, those 8 years were very slow growth.
Right.
And he's going to simply resurrect what Obama did.
Yeah, I don't know if Americans are going to vote with their pocketbook, but I will tell you what Americans are going to vote with that's going to be in their heart and mind, and that is they're going to ask who can we trust, who can we trust, and I think that actions speak louder than words. I really believe that you can kind of look at Joe Biden's actions, look at Trump's actions, and say, okay, not what has he said, but what has he done. I think that's a really, really important thing to say. As a pastor, I kind of think about a couple things with the pandemic. It did rob us of some of our prosperity, but I just am a big proponent of growth through adversity. You can grow more in adversity than you can in prosperity. And I believe that this adversity that we've had in our nation and that people have had. I mean, there's lots of people out there who have, had a lot of personal adversity through this. I think we can grow as a nation, and I think we're more aware of our immortality or our mortality, and the fact that Jesus brings immortality to the soul. Let me tell you, that's a great message. That's what I've been trying to get out. I've been trying to use this time to talk to people. Everyone's talking about death. Everyone's talking about the death rate. Everyone's talking. They were talking about it last night. We have to get the message out that in times of adversity or in times of prosperity, we need Jesus.
That's right. We don't need a Marxist society, new society.
Right.
That's not the answer. People need Jesus, and
Yeah.
we need an active and vibrant church. We've been working hard at Pacific Justice Institute to help empower the churches to,
Yes.
for example, to do church homeschool co-ops.
Right.
Those are increasing like crazy. Last
Yes, they
Sunday, I
are.
spoke at a church. A homeschooler came up to me and said, before we were just sort of, on the fringe of the church. Now the
Yeah.
church is behind us. They've started a church
Wow.
homeschool op directly
great.
because of what you've been doing in your Zoom calls for pastors.
Wow.
So there's great
That's
opportunities,
awesome.
and I
Yeah.
like that, and I like having leadership that recognizes it's not about government. It's
Yeah.
about letting the free market and churches and ministries and others thrive to meet
Yes.
those needs.
Yes, that's awesome.
Now, let's talk about the financial crisis, the element that was brought into the debate.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
talked about that a little bit already, but
Sure.
the bailouts, are those the answer? How did they reveal?
Yeah.
How did they respond to that in the debate?
Yeah, I've always kind of been critical of the bailouts. I think for two reasons. Number one, I think that they can help a little bit. I do think the first $900 billion stimulus was a help during a really crucial time. But I will tell you that Trump, it was kind of like he said, she said. Trump said, well, the Democrats aren't letting me, and Biden said, no, they would if you would let them do what they want with the bill, which, it's kind of a moot point. So they did talk about the bailout. I actually think that at this point, more than a bailout, we need to work out of this. I think we need to work out of this. And I think that it's something that when we start to open the restaurants and things up, the sooner we open them, the better. And open them safely. Open up schools safely. Open up these counties who, like Los Angeles County, man, been shut down. 50% of the small businesses are closing. I mean, that's going to tank your economy right there. And so
Right.
rather than a bailout, I just say, let's work out of this.
Okay, I know that Biden and the Democrats have been pushing for hundreds of billions of dollars to go to states like California government, the New York government, for those states in particular that have been financially irresponsible,
Yeah.
completely irresponsible. So that's why these states really want Biden in, because he's going to open the purse strings of tax dollars of hundreds of billions of dollars just to those Democrat
Yeah.
states that have been irresponsible.
Yeah.
And I think that's a terrible injustice for those in the other states, but also
Right.
even people in those states. I don't want to
Yeah.
see California bailed out with hundreds of billions of dollars of federal tax dollars because they were irresponsible with their liberal spending in their programs.
Yeah, every time they talked about something that needed to change, Biden always talked about the trillions of dollars that were needed. And, taxpayers should think to themselves at home, like, hey, I'm paying for that. Like, every time someone says, we need to give more or we need to do more, and you just need to think, that's a little bit more coming out of my pocket. That's the reality of what it is.
Yeah, as interest rates rise, 'cause bottom line, people need to understand that trillions of dollars is going to increase our debt.
Right.
there's a price to pay, especially interest on the debt. So the more debt we have, the more interest, particularly as rates go up.
Yeah.
That's going to consume a larger part of the budget.
Right.
They're going to make cuts in other areas. Cuts are going to come from, Medicare, Medi-Cal, areas where it's going to impact people in real ways. Education, defense, agriculture. I mean, it's going to have a real impact on their lives.
Right.
And so when you see, Biden coming out and saying, trillions of dollars, basically it's saying that's money that's going to be deducted from other areas that are really much more in need than just bailing out a bunch of fat, irresponsible governors and their fat budget. So,
but that's the macro level. The micro level is the worker that gets the 15-hour, minimum wage is lucky because the guy next to him is probably going to get laid off. If he gets a minimum wage increase, that business owner has to lay people off in order to afford the minimum wage increase. So a lot of people don't understand. The minimum wage increase, it just shrinks the job market and makes it more difficult to get a job. And I think that a lot of people don't think about the back portion of that. It's kind of sleight of hand. It says, let's raise the amount that we're paying everyone. And they're like, well, you're just going to pay fewer people more.
In fact, what the studies show, it's interesting, those who have the highest unemployment because of raising the minimum wage are actually minority teenagers.
Interesting.
In the urban areas, the African American communities, Latino communities, their youth take the biggest hit of unemployment and lack of jobs and opportunities than those than other areas. So it's very problematic. And it's going to hurt those that they're trying to help. You're basically eliminating the opportunity for people to have a job,
right? Because
they're going to have to cut. Businesses can't, especially business right now. They're struggling.
Right.
I liked how Biden came out and said, "You do raise the minimum wage of $15 an hour across the United States. You've just hurt businesses that are right now struggling to stay afloat and have anyone working."
Yeah.
Do you think the American people the average American are going to get that? I think that's pretty common sense.
Well, I hope that narrative is played to show the result of it. Yeah, it might help a few people, but the overall, I mean, if a business has to shut their doors, no one gets those jobs. So I think we need to think about, like you said, free market and what would be best for everyone. And that's why I've been critical of even the Republicans' bailout, is because what that does is it just pushes the problem to later. We're going to have to pay for those bailouts at some point, and really who's going to pay for them is probably my children, and my children's children. But we need to look at this and say, let's get a balance between, what we can do, because there's some things that we can do that are far better, and getting rid of the oil industry is not a sustainable thing that we can do. Raising the minimum wage is not something that a lot of businesses can sustainably do. So what can we sustainably do?
So in the debate, Trump has been very pro oil, gas, natural gas, those industries, for safe, clean usage of those industries.
Yeah.
He has allowed oil expansion increase. He's put America from being dependent on foreign oil. In a short period of time, we are now completely independent, and it's an incredible strong point of our economy. We're not dependent upon those countries that are betraying us right and left.
Right.
But Biden, I was a little surprised. He at least came out and said, I'm for getting rid of oil.
One final question.
Would he close down the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the oil industry?
By the way, I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Oh,
I would
that's
transition.
a big statement.
It is a big statement.
That's a big
because
statement.
I would stop.
Why would you do that?
Because the oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
And here's the deal. But
That's
you
a
can't
big
do
statement.
that. Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry. I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal subsidies to the gas. To solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do give it to solar and wind.
We
And
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because
We have
basically
one
what he's
final
saying
question,
is he is
Mr.
going to
President.
destroy the oil industry. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you remember that, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have to.
Phasing out, his opposition was very clear, though he's been waffling back and forth. At one time he says he wants to get rid of all fracking, all this.
Yeah.
That is going to have a huge impact on so many jobs and our economy.
Yeah. So, but can I play devil's advocate here for a second and ask this? If someone's sitting at home and they're like, well, but these oil companies are so corrupt, and if we keep big oil, we're keeping the most corrupt. Isn't just getting rid of oil, doesn't it just affect the big gasoline and oil companies?
Yeah, that's right. It just affects them and everyone. No, I'm just using.
No,
it affects people in a number of ways. First off, their pension. If you're out there and you have a pension, part of your pension investment is in the stock market. A chunk of the stock market is the oil and gas industries, a large part of that. So that's going to have a big impact.
Yeah.
Also, it's going to impact the economy. The cost of energy is going to go way up.
Yeah.
People who can't afford that brand new electric car by Tesla, or the Chevy Volt even, they're going to have difficulties because the cost for transportation is going to increase. The jobs are going to be lost. A large number of jobs are going to be lost in the process. We are in a free market, a very healthy transition in many ways, where the free market is allowing people to affordably buy electric cars, buy hydrogen cars. We're already in the transition. You bring the government to shut down oil, shut down coal, shut down fracking, shut down natural gas. It's going to be very catastrophic for the economy, for jobs, for everyone out there. What about the taxes?
Yeah.
Trump lowered taxes. We have high growth, a major increase in revenue in the government prior to the pandemic, which was out of his control. It was the Chinese control. But Biden, interestingly, he says, I'm going to increase taxes by $4.1 trillion, and he says it's against the rich. But the studies show it's not actually against the rich. It's going to increase the average person's taxes by more than $2,000 at the end of the day. Yeah. Especially when he repeals Trump's tax cuts.
Yeah.
That's a major hit.
Yeah, obviously Jesus said, "Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's." I pay taxes, but in California, it's interesting. I've never noticed this until I started talking to some of my local officials. The amount of tax that actually affects me, the amount of tax I pay that actually comes back and affects my community, is less than 1%. So your cities and your roads, that pothole, all of that's being paid for by 1%, less than 1% of the taxes that you pay. And so I didn't realize that, but I'm paying a ton and not getting a lot for it.
So we're going to have, I think, going down the Biden perspective, in the long run, we're going to have less jobs, a weaker economy, more debt, and less money in people's pockets because of these tax increases. Yeah. Some say, play devil's advocate, say that this, printing out these trillions of dollars as this debt will have a boost on the economy on the short term, potentially, but long term not. And Goldman Sachs and others come out and said that if they sweep, if it's a blue wave, tidal wave sweep of not just the White House but also the Senate, we'll see, forecast a potential major stock market correction. About 15% is what many stock analysts project.
Next question.
They said the stock market will boom if I'm elected. If he's elected, the stock market will crash.
Okay, let's move on to the next question.
Because then it'll be a free-for-all. There'll be nothing holding back government from massive spending increases, tax increases, hitting industries, oil industries and others, in a way that will have a definite long-term impact on the economy. And the stock market is more than just short-term.
Yeah.
So I think economically this is a serious issue. I think a lot came out in the debate.
Yeah.
One is for free market. and has already proven himself. Trump has already proven himself the last 3.5, 4 years, exactly what his policies do. So there's not a gamble.
Yeah.
We know what it does, and we know what it will do. Biden, we know what his policies will do and have done in the past under the Obama administration. It was high regulations, taxes, and that gave us the slowest rebounding economy in U.S. history. So it's real clear. They're both proven. If we have enough common sense, I think from an economic perspective, that the answer is really clear moving forward. As far as on the national scale, I want to talk also about, touch on if we can before the break, about their philosophy about law and order. They didn't talk about this much.
No, they didn't.
As far as that goes. But the attitude about government and law and order, I think that's on people's minds quite a bit. Trump has encouraged the National Guard to be brought in, but a lot of these cities that have had these riots and burning down and tearing down statues, these are all in Democrat-controlled cities,
Right.
or Democrat-controlled states. And they've said, oftentimes they say, no, we don't want the National Guard. We want, let the cities burn,
Yeah.
and then Nero or Biden will rebuild it. I think that's their thinking. Let the city burn,
Yeah.
and then in the end, I think that's their game plan.
Yeah, I heard someone last week say something that I thought was just horrific. They said the carpenter named Jesus would want us to deconstruct and completely tear down the government that racism built. Well, first of all, I hate that they use Jesus' name in that way.
Oh.
Second of all, the areas where it actually has been torn down. I mean, think about St. Paul. I have lots of family in St. Paul, Minneapolis. I mean, if you're in Minnesota right now, there is a massive shift from leftist policies of abolishing police and some of those things, from those progressive policies toward the right. And it's people who are not normally voting conservative values, but they're looking around saying, "Are you serious? Like you're not gonna stand up. You're not gonna actually draw a line and hold it." And so I know in Minnesota, that's one of the areas that I've seen a total shift. I think it's happening in California too.
Actually, I think businesses have looked at what's happening in Minneapolis, St. Paul, these areas, and have said, in fact, factories that have burned down says we're not rebuilding here.
Yeah.
Businesses are saying we're not going there.
Right.
Families are saying we're not moving there.
Yeah.
But if this election, they saw Minnesota go for Trump, for example, that would send a signal to the people, the average person is saying, wait a minute, the people in Minnesota are going to clean house. They're going to in the next governor's race, they're going to boot out their governor. They get it. They don't want this. They're not the same as a Chicago and an Illinois.
Right.
That is just die hard, we'll die in our stupidity.
Yeah.
But instead, you've got, I think that would send a loud signal. If I was living in Minnesota, I would want to send a signal to the rest of the country. We get it. Come back to Minnesota. We're going to clean house.
Yeah.
We're going to vote for Trump. We're going to elect a Republican senator. I think that would actually help their economy. It's actually a vote for their economy. If they're in a state, I believe, that's had the rioting and the people in the businesses saying, whoa, we're out of here. If they vote for Republican senator and Trump, it says, this state gets it.
Right.
Don't leave or think again and come back.
Yeah. I think the only thing that combats that is the news media. I think the news media has, a left lean to it, if that's an understatement, but it's a left lean to where they're really trying to package this as Trump's fault. And I think that discerning people who really know kind of what's going on, I think they'll see through some of that and kind of tell what is really happening as a result.
Yeah, as far as, it's interesting to say, though, but it's Trump's fault. Trump's not the mayor of Minneapolis. He's not the mayor of Baltimore.
Yeah,
or
they would
Chicago.
say, but they would say that he is encouraged the rhetoric of people being against people because he's so combative himself. I mean, I've heard tons of people say that. So
okay, but the irony in that, as you well know, that's the liberal media trying to create a false narrative.
Yeah, but I mean,
fake news. But
they're taking something that's believable, Trump's combative, and they're saying because he's combative, he's created all these combative people. So that's their line, and I think discerning people can see right through it.
How?
So if you look at Trump and you say, well, he's a really strong, combative person, and you deduct that because he's strong, everyone else is combative, even in leftist, policies, it would be like me saying, there's a lot of crazy drivers in California, so therefore everyone in California is a crazy driver. Or because, I saw a crazy driver, then everyone in California. You're judging one person and saying that he's the cause. And the reality is Trump is a strong leader that people, I think, are looking to. And the narrative that has been so pushed by the left-leaning media of saying because he's combative, everyone else is, I don't think a discerning person could come to that conclusion.
Yeah, and we're going to talk more about why that's not true.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure that we hit that real clear.
Yeah.
This president, Peter, as you know, and I want to make it really clear, he's not a politician.
Right.
But the combative is actually from Schumer, Pelosi, who just tore his speech during the State of the Union address.
Yeah.
Who blocked him, who falsely prosecuted him for impeachment. The vial is from the Democrats.
Right.
From day one, even before he was sworn into office. So I think that what we have to recognize is real clearly is that this has been a false narrative from the beginning. We have a president that is for law and order. Mm-hmm. If people want law and order, they don't want the cities to burn, they're going to vote for that at the ballot box. And this president is supportive of using the National Guard to help bail out these cities, to protect these cities. Biden has never talked about using the National Guard. His philosophy, as we've seen play out by his supporters, is burn, let it burn, let us rebuild it tomorrow. And that's that attitude. And I think that the American people will see that you can't blame a personality on people wanting to burn and destroy their cities, tearing down their statues.
Yeah.
Major false narrative. We'll have more to talk about when we return right after this.
Hi, I'm Brad Dacus, president and founder of the Pacific Justice Institute. We have never been at the crossroads like we are today in America. In our over 20-year history at PJI, we have never been involved in more cases at one time, helping those whose freedoms are being abused, all at no charge. We're proud to provide justice for all, and not just for the high-profile cases. A client who's also a pastor recently told us, "We are at a time as pastors that we have never been before in our lifetime." So it's great to have people like PJI to turn to for information, someone that will help us combat the new situations that we face, and come alongside us to let us know that we are not the only one in the fight. But folks, we can't do this without you. If you, like us, stand for religious freedom, parental rights, and the sanctity of human life, would you sign up at pji.org to receive our free e-newsletter, The Legal Insider?
Welcome back to Brad Dacus Live. We were just talking about that false narrative. So explain, why should someone not believe that false narrative that Trump's the cause of, that Trump somehow caused these riots? He somehow he's not the head of BLM. So why is he not the cause? And who is the cause of these rioting and this massive destruction of America?
So if you turn on CNN and they're saying, Trump, as Biden said last night, is a dog whistle the size of a foghorn, inciting violence, and you hear that because he's so, always on Twitter, always instigating an argument. If you hear that on CNN and you ask yourself, really, could that? Here's why it's false. Here's why a normal person could be sitting there thinking, here's what the wrong false narrative is. It comes down to two things. Number one, it comes down to strong leadership is not always friendly. Strong leadership is not always your friend. It does not always say things that are, politically correct. And I believe that Trump has been good from the very beginning to say what he believes is true. And you can't, that's the first thing. The second thing is that it is actually the Antifa, and it is actually the people in these cities who are being paid by the left who is inciting it. So the narrative that Trump is doing it, you have to go to who's paying for it. Trump's not paying for it. The right's not paying for it. The Antifa is being paid for by the left-leaning donors and by the people. And then who's allowing it? Trump's trying to get the federal and the National Guard in. Who's allowing it? The left-leaning governors, the left-leaning mayors, the people in these cities who are letting it happen. That's why I said earlier about Minnesota, the fact that people in that I'm related to watched their progressive mayors stand by and do nothing. That's how people have seen through it. And that was my whole point, is I think discerning people see right through this.
Yeah.
I think they see that Trump's not paying for it. Trump's not the one that's behind this. Someone else is.
Right.
People are discerning.
And even when we talk about left-leaning, you say, or liberal, it's not even left-leaning or liberal, really. It's the far left, because liberals see the breakdown of basic rights under the Constitution, free speech.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my liberal buddies are like big free speech advocates.
Right.
Alan Dershowitz, for example, big free speech advocates, and he is seeing. A lot of liberals are saying, wait a minute, we're seeing a destruction of our civil rights here, of free speech, and be able to gather and be safe and not have be shot at and things by people who don't agree with you. So it's this far left, the digressives, that have really bringing us back before our Constitution as far as our rights and liberties, and it's really alarming. I hope a lot of people really heard what you had to say to understand who the culprits are,
Right.
who's been supporting the culprits. Kamala Harris, she actually gave money to financially support an organization that bailed out these criminals who did these rioting acts and violence. One of them was guilty of murder, bailed them out. Biden's staff has given money through this organization to bail out these criminals to do more violence, more destruction. They are the ones behind this. Soros is behind this.
Yeah.
So it's not the conservatives. It's
Right.
not the people who love law and order in America.
Right.
It's those who want to tear down America so they can rebuild it, which is what Biden and Harris have talked about. As far as the debate, let's go back to some of these points here, because I think it's real important to look at the issues dealing with the election responsibility and election fraud. How is that playing out? And how was that debated in this debate?
Yeah, they talked about some election interference, and Trump brought up some of the issues with Hunter Biden and some of the things that are going on with silencing that. I actually think the news media this time around has been the greatest tool of election interference. They have been the ones running interference, trying to protect Biden's character. And now they can't. I mean, the head of the intelligence agencies for the United States said there is credible evidence that shows that Hunter Biden was involved with some unethical, people and was taking money and things. So I think that's something that the news media is going to have to come to grips with, the fact that they're interfering with people knowing the important information about Biden.
Let's talk about that some more, because
Yeah.
the reality is, as you pointed out, Facebook, Twitter, the networks have all been completely silent about this Joe Biden, Hunter Biden money laundering from Russia, from the mayor of Moscow, from China, these countries. And we're talking about millions of dollars going into their pockets. Mm-hmm. The email isn't just one email, it's validated by 3 separate laptops. And now the former partner of Hunter Biden has refuted with the emails evidence and also his own testimony, has said that Joe Biden is lying. He's a flat out liar when he said he wasn't aware of what was going on. He was a part of the deal. He was the big JB that was supposed to get a 10% of the money flowing out of China through these deals in his capacity as vice president. So,
Wow.
I mean, I'd like to think that the American people would scream and yell and realize we're not going to let this big coup take over America. We're looking at Facebook, Twitter, the networks, CNN, MSNBC, being hush-hush. Do you think they're going to be successful with that anymore? Do you think now that even the debate had to address that, do you think it's going to hopefully open the door so that Fox, Newsmax, And One American News are not the only ones out there talking about this.
Yeah, I wanted to read the article, and I was on my phone trying to find the article from the New York Post. I couldn't find it. And so I think a lot of people are like, hey, I want to read this. Is there anything credible? Let me see for myself. You try to pull it up, it's gone. So that's corruption. That's corruption at its finest.
Yeah.
And I think the greatest thing we can do to stem the tide of corruption is vote. Vote our values. Make sure that we're voting according to the Word of God. I've been telling our church that. We've been telling lots of other churches. We've had 317 churches who are encouraging their people to vote, who've committed to do voter registration. And I will tell you that I think that's how we're going to stem the tide of corruption, is one election at a time.
Right. I know Biden says, well, Trump had a bank account in China. Well, he had a bank account in China, but he closed that when he became president of the United States because he wanted to make sure there was absolutely no conflict of interest. But to have someone in office using their position irrefutably, that's what was happening, and their son using it with him to make money based on their position, that is a violation of federal law. That is money laundering. That is using their position for their own personal wealth. And what I'm concerned about moving forward is the extent to which China and Russia will have all the goods on Biden that they can use. They could blackmail him as president. They could keep him from doing all kinds of things just for him to save his skin. And now we see he's willing to say whatever it takes to save his skin. I'm concerned having a president that we know will likely be able to be blackballed because China and Russia have the goods on him. They know what he was doing.
Yeah, I wonder if we're not going to have a couple more days of information coming out that's just completely unbelievable and like you said, not even a doubt of all of the corruptive deals that he's done in the past. I actually think there's more information to come. I don't know that, but I think that this is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. If Biden is elected president, then he'll take over the Department of Justice, boot out Attorney General Barr, who's doing a fantastic job. He'll replace him with someone from the far left, like Holders or someone, or Cuomo. There will be no federal prosecution of him or his son. If they take the Senate, there'll be no investigation. If they keep the House, no investigation.
Yeah.
And the greatest criminal attack, this is the greatest crime family ever to be seeking the White House in U.S. history. And to have it all happen and not face prosecution, I think it's disgusting. We saw it with Hillary. The American people expressed their opinion about that in 2016.
Right.
To what extent do you think they're going to express it in 2020? Do you think the American people, do you think this is going to be a big issue for the American people to say, even separate from the policies, I can't have someone in the White House that have betrayed America's trust and is potentially a victim, going to be a victim of blackmail and control by the other countries moving forward. Do you think that?
Yeah. I hope the news gets out. I think it will. I think it will have to because of how large it is and how much actual evidence, irrefutable evidence there is. So I think that news will get out. And you look at that and you say, well, if people are actually not just voting their party lines, but they're actually voting based on principle, that will definitely have an effect. Definitely have an effect.
Yeah, I think so too. And of course, China. Biden has talked about China as, China's nothing wrong with China. China's a great organization. On video, he was critical of Trump standing up to China in terms of fair trade, which has saved so many American jobs. And he's been China's nothing to worry about. China's our friend. China's, fine, and yet China is engaging in some of the greatest human rights crises.
Yeah.
Not only have they been stealing secrets from America, and the prior administrations have allowed that to happen, both Republicans and Democrats, shamefully. President Trump stood up to them, but to what extent do you think the American people are going to remember the persecuted church and so much persecution taking place in China right now? Has it gotten worse over the years?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I just had a friend who was imprisoned in China and his only crime was holding a Bible study. They are killing the Uyghur people. They are doing so many things that are against the international rule of law. And when Biden just stands up and says, we just want them to play by the international rules, they've never played by the international rules. Why would we ever think they would start now if Biden miraculously becomes president? I mean, how in the world are we going to think that they're going to oh, okay, well now and so we'll start playing by the rules? That was the most ridiculous thing he said last night. They're not going to play by the rules. They haven't. They aren't. They're killing Christians. They're killing their own people. We know that. And it needs to stop. And we need to be a voice. We don't need to be partnering with them. We need to be a voice against them. And if the United States ever goes down a route where they're doing some of the things that people should cry against us. I will tell you that it's wrong. It's unequivocally wrong.
Yeah. And now many people see China and Russia and Iran actually as meddling in this election. What have you heard that has supported that moving forward, as far as they're actually meddling with false ads that are supposedly from Trump but are really not? I heard Russia was doing that supposedly through Estonia.
Yeah.
Recently, trying to affect senior citizen voters down in
Florida.
Florida.
Yeah, if you do a search, I mean, you can very easily tell that Russia, Iran, and China do not want Trump to get reelected. Period. I mean, everything that's not, well, I don't know where this came from. No, everything they know came from Iran. I forget the names of them, but I mean, everything they're doing, they're trying to interfere to get Biden in. They want someone who's soft on foreign policy. Trump has been nothing but strong in foreign policy, and they are not for that.
Yeah, I also understand that Twitter, Facebook, and others have not been doing the vetting to expose it. The ones coming from Iran, they're not referencing it as from Iran, even though it's a seeming advertisement that's indirectly attacking Trump, trying to tear down Trump. The one from Russia was interesting to read about. It says it's from the Patriot Boys. And it says...
The Proud Boys?
Or the Proud Boys. And you either vote for Trump or we're going to kill you. And it's just radical. And they sent it to the Democrats in Florida, these senior citizens, the Russians did, so they would all be like, we're not going to put up with this. Yeah. We're going to vote, Mildred. And it's just a big scam.
Yeah.
The MSNBC, CNN, they're not talking about it. Facebook's not talking about it.
Yeah.
It's very alarming, but they're putting a lot of money to create fake ads against Trump. And so we see the foreign money coming in. We see the radicals doing what they're doing, BLM, Antifa, and others doing this kind of stuff.
The difference between 2016 and 2020 is in 2020, the Iranians are not even trying to hide it. The Proud Boys, I mean, their IP address is registered in Iran. I mean, they're not even trying to hide it. They are doing this on purpose to send a message. We want to interfere, and we do not want to deal with Donald Trump for 4 more years. That says something.
Oh, it says a lot, because when they dealt with the Obama administration, we got to remember what happened. Obama gave them,
400 and
billions or
something like
huge amount of money in cash. It was sent via cash.
Yeah.
And bought them off and gave them all this money that they used to fund for terrorism. And Iran broke the treaty. They've been developing nuclear weapons and arms. So they want another sugar daddy to occupy the White House that's going to give them all this money and let them do what they want. And they know that Biden, the Obama administration, was very soft. They could easily walk all over them. China, Obama was very soft in his administration with Biden. Russia, the same thing. So they want a softie that they can step on, use, intimidate. And now they're using it for false advertising. Moving forward, it's very concerning. Amy Coney Barrett, how was that? Was that brought up? Was that discussed? in the debate? And if so, what was the takeaway that you saw?
Yeah, he asked twice, would you pack the court? So President Trump asked Biden twice, would you pack the court? Will you pack the court?
You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
you gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that question?
And he wouldn't answer clearly, but he has answered before. He does intend to pack the court. When Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed, I thought the incredible thing that was just so stark, if you're just watching that at home, he kept on talking about moving the needle of being inclusive. We need to be so, inclusion is so important. I mean, look at Amy Coney Barrett. They were so hateful toward her religious beliefs. And I'm sitting there as a Christian thinking of the words of Antonin Scalia, who said, if Christians continue to believe the way they are and the nation continues to go the way it is, Christians will be considered foolish in their own country. He said that. And I believe that's coming to pass because the Democrats, they painted her as a fool just for believing Judeo-Christian beliefs. Well, the last time I checked, the majority of our nation believes Judeo-Christian beliefs. And so they're completely being exclusive to her in the name of inclusion.
Yeah, and a number of senators, actually, when she was being questioned for the 7th Circuit appointment, we saw, Feinstein, Kamala Harris, and Bernie Sanders. We saw them openly attacking her and attacking other candidates because of their Christian faith. One was a judicial nominee. He was being attacked because he was a member of Knights of Columbus, and Knights of Columbus is affiliated with the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church is pro-life, and we've got to be against. We can't let people who are serious about their faith to be on the courts. That is their sick, twisted mindset, folks. They want. How can anyone vote for a party that has as their end result, based on their actions, to purge people of faith from serving as a judge?
Yeah.
And we saw that, and then we've seen it play out. Even Feinstein, she didn't know her mic was on this last time, and she pointed out. She said, "Well, I think this is becoming out of her opinions because of her Catholic faith. I think that's why she's thinking this."
She said that?
Yeah,
on an
that
open
she
mic?
didn't know the mic wasn't on.
Oh, my word.
So
wow.
we even came out again, but they're very clear in their
Yeah.
bigotry, and I like judges of faith.
Yeah, me too.
I like judges who take their faith seriously. I think it's healthy.
Yeah, well, we can't have judges who have a faith that's masquerading as a political belief. And I think a lot of people say, well, I don't have faith. Well, everyone has faith in something. And so, I'd rather have a judge that is open and honest about her faith than a judge that basically says they don't have faith, but really their faith is in their own political and ideological beliefs. Everyone believes in something. And I think that just to have someone who's just open about what they believe and to be open about why they believe it and to even protect, some of the organizations they were attacking. She protected some of those faith-based organizations. I was proud of her for that. She didn't kowtow and say, well, I'll throw them under the bus just to get my nomination or my, being confirmed. No, she stood up for Blackstone. She stood up for some of these others that she had spoken at. So I respected that a lot.
The overall majority of the American people, as they've watched, they're behind her. The majority of Americans say she's qualified, she's competent, I trust her, she'd be great on the court. I think this is actually going to help Trump. One of the main arguments that have come out that they try to say is, well, he's trying to he's packed the court. No, but packing the court is when you create new positions for justices that weren't there before.
Yeah.
He's filling a vacancy. And mind you, 26 times in American history, there have been vacancies on the Supreme Court during an election year.
Yeah.
Presidents have submitted nominees in almost all of those circumstances. When they did, if the party was the same party in the Senate as in the White House, 8 out of 10 of the times, they approved it.
Wow.
So this is not unusual. This is normal to happen.
Yeah.
And am really wondering if the American people are going to buy the lies of deception of Schumer and Pelosi to somehow say this is some weird thing happening. It's legal, it's historical, end of discussion.
Yeah, and the two that weren't, wasn't it because the travel took a long time for the senators to get back, and they couldn't get back until after the election because they're coming into Congress on horse and buggy, right?
Right. Kamala Harris in her debate, she said, I want to reference Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln. He decided, no, I'm not going to have a vote on this nominee. I'm going to wait till later. I think this is the right thing. No, here's the truth. She was lying and deceiving, and she's pretty good at that, frankly, just her track record.
In 1864, Abraham Lincoln was up for re-election, and it was 27 days before the election, and a seat became open on the United States Supreme Court. Abraham Lincoln's party was in charge not only of the White House, but the Senate. But Honest Abe said it's not the right thing to do. The American people deserve to make the decision about who will be the next president of the United States, and then that person can select who will serve for a lifetime on the highest court of our land. And so Joe and I are very clear. The American people are voting right now, and it should be their decision about who will serve on this most important body for a lifetime.
But the truth was just what you said. Abraham Lincoln says, okay, we've got a war taking place here. We don't have the Senate in session. Let's just go and do it afterwards. It was a logistical issue.
Yeah.
It wasn't I need to wait and see if I'm going to be reelected.
Interesting. Yeah.
His reelection was pretty much assured
Sure.
for the most part, considering that the states that had voted against him were no longer part of the Union
Right.
at the time. So,
Yeah.
so that was a false narrative. There were reasonable logistical reasons.
Yes.
Historically, it's supported. Constitutionally, it's supported. But the false narrative of Schumer and Pelosi, the one who rips up his speech in front of him while he's giving the State of Union speech, giving no respect for the office, they're the ones that are trying to twist and deceive. Now, let's just hope the truth can get out moving forward. I want to thank you, before this is over, for the work that you've done as our pastor liaison for Pacific Justice Institute.
Been an honor.
How many churches, through your contacts and you're working with them, how many churches made the commitment to do voter registration on Sunday mornings at church? How many churches?
Yes. Yeah.
This is important. I want people to see.
317 churches have committed to us to do voter registration. We've had 60% of those report back, and over 11,000 new voters in 8 different districts are planning to vote. We know that when someone votes for the first time, meaning they register for the first time and they vote, they're 90% more likely than even someone who is a regular average voter. So we could be adding 25,000 new voters into this. And really what we're wanting to do is we're wanting churches not to be silent. We're wanting the voice of the church to be heard. That's what it's called. The church finds its voice. And it's been an honor to be a part of it, honor to talk to all of these pastors. And thank you, Brad, for allowing me to be a part of it, because it has encouraged me to have a voice in my church and in my community as well.
Yeah, among the resources we have on our website, in addition to the Church Finds Its Voice video that their pastors can watch and be inspired of what they can do and say legally
Yes.
As we get close to the election. And then in addition, we have some other great videos, one on the sex ed, SEXXX ed, a very important video opening the eyes of parents as to what's going on in their public schools moving forward, options of churches starting church homeschool co-ops, how churches can open safely.
Right.
Just there's so much in the way of resources we have
Yes.
there to help you to be able to serve these churches and pastors. So if you're out there and you want information, you're a pastor of a church, you're a citizen, you want to know what your rights are, you want to know what you can do, we're here to empower you, to enable you to do just that without charge at the Pacific Justice Institute. I believe that this is a very important time in our nation's history, folks. The stakes couldn't be higher. Our judicial branch is hanging in the balance. If the court's packed, it's going to become a sub part of government. There's so much at stake. Let's get out and vote. So, folks, there you have it. It's our God-given freedoms we're talking about now. Now, let's choose to keep them. I'm Brad Dacus, president of the Pacific Justice Institute. Let's continue the fight for your freedoms.